Well, incredible as it may seem, we lucked out and we are here at Akwesasne. And I am talking to probably one of my favorite cousins of all times. This is an Iroquois Mohawk tribe, Iroquois Nation, and the Wolf Clan. And this is my first cousin, but even more than that, she is the chief on the St. Regis Indian Reservation of the Mohawks. And this is Chief Beverly. And I had a few questions for you today, if you don't mind. Where do you call home?
Here, it's always been home. Akwesasne has always been my home.
Okay, and for the rest of the world, it's right on the Quebec-New York State border,
right,
or
the
U.S.
reservation straddles the U.S.-Canadian border, so half is on the Canadian side, half is on the U.S. side.
Right, which makes the politics of the area very complex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in your how many? I can't ask you how old you are. In your many years here on Mother Earth, what's been your favorite accomplishment?
My favorite is my girls, my daughters, and my grandkids. It's I'm really proud of them. I'm proud of where they've come from, what they've been through in their life, their demeanor, and I think I'm especially proud of all three of them because I sent them to the Freedom School, the Akwesasne Freedom School, which was an alternative school. It was run by parents from the community, from the reservation, and we established that school back in 1979, and it eventually became a total immersion Mohawk school. So they were taught their language and their culture. They were taught reading, math, and all of that. They didn't learn English until the last year that they were there, which was around 7th grade. So by 8th or 9th grade, they transferred over to a public school. But in the amount of time that they were there at the Freedom School, it really gave them a stronger basis or foundation of who they were than you or I ever got when we were growing up. And you can see it. I can see it in their personalities, in their their demeanor, the way that they conduct themselves, the way that they think, and the way that they express themselves. And so because of that, they've done a great job in raising their own children and helping to raise each other's children. It's just a real, I can't say enough good about them.
Now, if I'm right, in the school, in the circle of the school, they can only speak Mohawk to start, correct?
Yeah, now it is. Initially it started out as being mostly Mohawk and a little bit of English, but as the years went by, they started to become more confident that they were doing the right thing by making it total immersion, and the kids were learning Mohawk, but they were also learning their science and all of that because the curriculum within the school was about creation. So they took the opening address that we do that outlines all of the parts of creation that we should be thankful for, and they based their curriculum on that. So when they were talking about birds, they used that topic to teach math and to teach the language, to teach science, to teach biology, just life lessons. So it was a really strong curriculum. So now it's total immersion.
Well, I was familiar with that only because I got a chance to do storytelling at the school.
Uh-huh.
And the treat for me is that I couldn't wait to get off this reservation. And I guess for whatever reasons, you might understand, and I was alcoholic and problem with suicide. Couldn't wait to get off, but when it came time in my 30s to dry out, my only salvation was coming back to the Indian religion and not Catholicism. Catholicism just offering leaps of faith. The Indian religion is very simple. You're sustained life by Mother Earth and Father Sky and Grandmother Moon, And as long as you treat them with respect, they'll keep you alive.
Yeah, and it's more of a, we look at it more as a way of life as opposed to a organized religion.
Right.
So it makes it less.
So it was my treat that I
Yeah.
got to come back to my own reservation and do storytelling, and very enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these next questions are very optional. What has been the very best moment of your life?
I think the best moment. There were two. There were three. Two of them were when my grandchildren, my two oldest grandchildren, were born. They were born at home, and the first delivery, my grandson, who's 19 now, or will be 19 in July. His birth was probably as perfect as you can imagine a birth could be, at home with his mother and father together. His father caught him as he was being born. Gudgy was the midwife at both of the births, actually. So that was a real complete moment for me, for my whole life. And Gudgy also had two of Grandma's aprons. So she had on one of her aprons and I had one of her aprons on. And so it was just so complete to be able to watch that birth in Grandma's aprons and with Gudgy. And it was just beautiful. And then the second birth was a little bit more problematic, but stunning just the same. So the fact that they're both here and that they came in that way, to our family and to this world is really wonderful. And then there was another moment in my life that I remember. I was much younger. I was probably 20 myself. And I was standing by a lake in the middle of the Adirondacks at a girls' camp that we had just taken over. Taking over in terms of a takeover, where some Mohawks from Kahnawake found this camp, and it was an abandoned girls' camp, and we were going to. It was the original Ganyanga site, and we were going to be self-sufficient and sovereign and all of that, and it didn't quite work out that way. I mean, there was a happy ending, but I remember standing on the shores of that lake, and it was probably the only time in my life that I really felt absolute joy or freedom. Maybe it was freedom. I wasn't in nursing school anymore. I wasn't, in my parents' home anymore. I was an independent, free being standing on the side of this gorgeous lake, and I will never forget that day. And I don't know, that was great. And the other great times were the births of my own children, but those are really outstanding to me.
Now, to reference Gudgy, she's another cousin, first cousin of ours, but she's a world-famous midwife. Yeah. So to even have her any way connected with something is incredible, because she travels all over teaching and that. And our grandmother, Elizabeth, was the midwife for the reservation. But in the hard times in this country, when people couldn't afford the $80 in the hospital, they'd bring them hundreds of miles to have her birth their children. I think the one diary I read was $8 for a week's worth of care. Yeah,
and my dad, your Uncle Julius, would say that she would scrub the floors, like she took care of them while the mom was recovering from the delivery. She would be scrubbing the floors, and she would paper their walls and just take care of the whole house.
Well, the humorous one, the diary that I read, it was $8 for a week's worth of care, and she took care of the baby, and the mother just nursed her. Everything else was done for you. It was $8 a week. Well, as you read the diary, she says, well, John and Laura came to pick the baby up today, and they didn't really have the whole $8. They just had $5. So they gave me a blind dog and a three-legged horse. So, and the next 2 pages later, it says, "Oh, Fred and Lisa or whatever came to pick up their baby. They didn't have any of the $8, and they just had their son get sick, so I loaned them $25. So it really wasn't a super profitable venture." I'm going to pause right here for a sec.